Ladies and gentlemen, never in my wildest dreams would I expect self inflicted wounds to turn Chris Kirkpatrick into someone who chokes. For Cynthia Bailey to have a fight with Todd that could have been staged to help all the black folks. And then, on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, Shayna, by using this veto on CARSON, she may have also put herself in a position where her entire game's on a tightrope. I mean, this is what we love about this game, ladies and gentlemen. And in this rant, I'm going to break down not only how Chris Kirkpatrick really tricked himself off the streets by playing dumb, I'm going to explain why Todd is a damn fool. But this could be some Candy Burris Tamar stuff. I'm going to give you both sides of the pendulum there. I'm going to break down where Lamar and Todd's games are starting to split and diverge into different win conditions. We're going to also break down how CARSON now seems to be on no one's radar except Todrick. We're going to break down how Todrick got his way this week because Miesha did what she never thought she would have to do in cutting Chris Kirkpatrick. And we're going to break down why Miesha came to this decision. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's become a tradition at this point. We might as well start calling it Deep Dive Fridays because in this rant, we're going to break it all down and have you all perfectly prepared for tonight's live eviction. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the critically acclaimed The Pop the Trunk podcast, now Patreon exclusively sponsored Hall of Fame. Recency Bias Radio, where no one is safe from criticism. I'm, of course, your humble host, Dave Smith, Pretty Boy Smitty, Protocol Paul, Pearl Game Ultra, Smid Dog Trio, The Rant God, Hotep Thanos, Throne Thanos, Metro Kaiba, The Pro Black Prodigy, The Shadow Realm Shaman, The Pronoun Punisher, and the No Sleep Assassin, here to bring balance back to Celebrity Big Brother, Season 3, all of the above on that ISAT test and ACT. You know what it is. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back for another deep dive. This one is the 11th rant of the season entitled Playing with Fire. Because if I had to break down Chris Kirkpatrick's entire rise and fall in this game in 3 words, it's playing with fire. The guy literally had the keys to the car. He had the Infinity Stone, coach. He knew where the spare key was under the mat by the door. Okay? Miesha gave him all the privileges he could ask for. And he still blew it. Now, to be fair, I think him and Shayna blew it together on Monday. But at the end of the day, we can't blame Shayna for not using the veto if Chris is too lemon booty scared to do something with her using it. For all we know, Chris would have thrown up a Todd. Chris may have thrown up a Lamar. It wasn't going to be worth the move for Shayna's game. So, from one side of the pendulum, you look at Shayna's game and you go, from a certain extent, this is what you get. Because you came out the gates like gangbusters trying to play both sides when you should have been loyal and you should have chose your side wisely later on. She decided TEDDI didn't need to be in this game. Her and Kirkpatrick made the decision to get rid of a player they could have worked with because they wanted to replace TEDDI and be part of that Pink Room posse. Yes, that's the new nickname I'm going to give them tonight. But understand, ladies and gentlemen, the Pink Room posse now have all of the clout, all of the pull in the house. That's at least how it feels. And it's because Miesha was forced to eat her own because Chris KATTAN quit. Understand, Chris KATTAN is the hero of the season. If he doesn't quit this week, if he stays in the house, yeah, maybe he's evicted anyway on Friday. But at the end of the day, him leaving when he left forced Shayna to feel like she needed to win veto to guarantee her safety because she knew with KATTAN being gone, she knew she would be the next one on that chopping block in Miesha's game. She could feel it. That's why she won the veto. Now, based off live feeds, ladies and gentlemen, it seems as if the veto competition was a Jenga puzzle of some sorts in which you had to stack snowflakes on top of each other. It seems as if Shayna was the only one who did well enough to complete it. It seems like Todrick was so pissed about being second rate to Shayna again, that he kept trying to stack his snowflakes after she already won veto just to see if he could finish it. This has been pretty much exposed by Kirkpatrick. But at this point, I can't tell if Kirkpatrick is just reaching and throwing shade at this point or if he's telling the truth. But understand, Shayna winning this veto and Shayna making the decision to take CARSON off, but allowing Miesha and Todrick to run with the idea that she would take Cynthia off instead of CARSON. That is what is hurting Shayna's game now that she has taken CARSON off. Because now that Chris Kirkpatrick, ladies and gentlemen, is replacement nom, not Todd. We're going to get into it during the deep dive, during the notes. We're going to break this down step by step. But I need you all to understand, Shayna lied to Miesha's face, and she told her she would not use that veto on CARSON. She had Miesha under the belief, under the assumption that she could throw up Chris, and then there was a chance Chris could still stay over CARSON. So at least for Miesha's moral compass, at least for her, for how she feels towards Chris Kirkpatrick, she felt as if she gave him a fighting chance in that light. But now that we know for a fact that Shayna used the veto on CARSON to guarantee he would stay as her shield over Chris Kirkpatrick, who she believes was just too focused and fixated on Miesha and too obsessed with Todrick as a result of it, understand, this is what pushed Shayna to be willing to put Chris Kirkpatrick in the line, in the firing line, if you will, in exchange for protecting CARSON, because she sees that at the end of the day, CARSON is just a better game player to Chris. And in this rant, we're going to break down why CARSON is the one people want to follow behind. And it's because from a social standpoint, CARSON just has, he has that part perfected, right? And then you add the outside context of the fact that, okay, yeah, he won one veto, but now Shayna has won two vetoes. So now the argument is Shayna's the bigger threat to the opposite side than CARSON. Now, for Todrick, CARSON is the bigger threat. But for Miesha, I think Shayna is now the bigger threat for lying to her face. And I think that's why she threw up Chris. That way it was like, all right, you gonna lie to me? Well, all right. I'm going to throw up Chris, and I'm going to send him out this door, and I'm coming after you in 2 weeks when I get the chance. Now, 2 weeks for her will be Monday, but let's get into these feeds talk, ladies and gentlemen. Let me bring you along slowly. I want to make sure all of you all are well prepared for tonight's episode. So here we go. While Shayna, Cynthia, and CARSON, by the way, this starts off on Wednesday. While Shayna, Cynthia, and CARSON plot on a way to flip this game downstairs, Miesha and Todrick are scheming on how to make a deal with CARSON now that it appears Shayna will no doubt take him off the block anyway. Miesha is so rattled by Todrick losing the veto to Shayna that she thought they could still backdoor Shayna. The fact she is considering this shows Shayna is to her what Todrick is to Chris. It's obvious Chris regrets not backdooring Todrick now because all signs point towards him being more likely to be backdoored than Todd. Mainly because Todrick is applying pressure to get Miesha to see the light. And that's where I'm going to give Todrick a lot of credit this week. I think if Todrick was not part of the wise council helping recruit Miesha move along this game correctly, I think she would have made a huge mistake along this road. Now, some could create the argument backdooring Chris Kirkpatrick, even throughout all of the mistakes he's made, is still a mistake for her game. No matter what, she should be trying to ensure either Cynthia leaves this week or possibly a Lamar or Todd. One could create that argument based off how the numbers shake out. One could also create the argument that Todd planned that fight perfectly, so heading into Final 7 with 4 black people, the remaining 3 white people would assume that they aren't all united as 4. Who knows? But I digress. Now, mainly because Todrick is applying pressure to get Miesha to see the light. The fact that they are even willing to make a deal with CARSON is a testament to Cynthia's gameplay, because any other season, the house takes out CARSON's untouchable if they can't get him out. Todrick at this point is only worried about Shayna because she beat him in 2 veto competitions. And Chris for trying to take him out. He is worried about CARSON winning the game because of this, though, and he made a point of telling Miesha that they still have to get CARSON out at some point. It appears Todrick fears going head-to-head with Chris, so as long as Miesha gets Chris out, Todrick feels comfortable about winning HOH on Friday. Todrick then tells Miesha they have to watch what they say around Lamar because he tends to talk way too loud and expose stuff. Lamar does this all the time. And honestly, I think that's why he has a great chance at AFP, because with feeds constantly being down, it's great to have someone like Lamar who's willing to break the fourth wall and let us know what was happening when feeds were down. Lamar, he almost makes production look foolish for knocking down feeds in the first place, because he's going to figure out a way to tell us what happened. Now, Todrick's read is on point because Lamar is being recruited by the other side to flip if Todd is thrown up. We all know if Chris is backdoored, the vote is probably 5-0. Shayna would not throw Chris a sympathy vote if she wouldn't throw TEDDI one. I mean, she set that precedent. Now, Chris is making it seem like he's going to feel disrespected if he goes out with no vote thrown his way. But at the end of the day, the Shadow Realm awaits. But that's neither here nor there. Now, but if Todd is backdoored, it's probably 4-1 vote with Todrick being left out there exposed. And now it makes more sense why Todd is being mentioned as a backdoor. Apparently, players caught wind of some Final Two deal Chris has with Todd. Todd is known to act like he has a Final Two with everybody, so at first it was taken as a joke. Then when Todd told Todrick last night about Chris wavering by trying to turn on their side, which told Todrick that Todd at least was against Chris. But then after that, Todd was hanging with Chris a lot, making Todrick paranoid about Todd and Lamar possibly being untrustworthy. I think Todd legitimately doesn't like Chris, and he is just playing the game because he always said he would nominate KATTAN and Kirkpatrick together. I think Todrick always has the wrong read on Todd, but the right read on everyone else. That wrong read could lead to Todrick settling for Todd going up, which could be catastrophic for Miesha in his game. Now, this didn't end up happening, but I was documenting these things in the moment. Now, with KATTAN now leaving, Todd, in theory, is the ideal GOAT to drag to the end for Chris, especially now with Shayna being a more respected player than him. But I think this Final Two isn't real at all because Chris wants Todd thrown up over Lamar, which is shocking to me because for Kirk's game, Lamar should go up and Todd should be flipping. Todrick wisely tries to steer Miesha closer to backdooring Lamar over Todd because Lamar has shown a willingness of wanting to quit. This is the gameplay I need to see more of, not that Todd has a Final Two with Chris stuff. In theory, that is done to push Miesha towards disliking Chris, but it really pushes her more towards disliking Todd. By pushing for Lamar, he at least is showing signs of seeing the other side's best move before they make it. Todrick knows that Shayna and Chris knows he is on to them, so he wants Miesha to propose a Final Four deal with them and act like nothing has changed to get a read on them while she has the veto. They want to push for Lamar as the back door as well, which is best for their game. But Todrick admits something that is key. He thought they already had a Final Four deal with Shayna and Chris, but I can confirm he is wrong in this because for the longest, they included Lamar in it over Shayna. Remember, it was an athletes Final Four alliance at first. This is what spooked off Chris Kirkpatrick during his HOH week to contemplate the backdoor of Todrick on top of the whole PR stuff with MARAI. He wasn't feeling any of that, but now we know the real crux of it. He may or may not have had some affinity for Miesha, and he was territorial over her. And I personally believe the reason why Chris tries so hard to paint targets on Todrick and Todd is because those are two people Miesha would take the Final Two before him. So in his mind, okay, if I take these two out, who else you gonna take the Final Two besides me? No one else. So that's really what motivates him. That's what motivated him to flip in a weird way. He's flipping on Miesha because he wants to take out all the people Miesha needs to go to Final Two with so he can flip back with Miesha and go to the end with. It's like, what? Like, it's just so obsessive when you really break this down to its core. But you know me, Recency Bias Radio's investigative crew, we going to get down to the least common denominator every time. Now, Todrick, this is what infuriated Kirkpatrick initially. Todrick and Miesha purposely did not include Shayna in their Final Four. Now that she's won power 2 weeks in a row, they regret not making her feel more secure. Miesha admitted to not including Shayna by saying she only told Chris she wanted him to make Final Four. Todrick thinks it was obvious Shayna was included in it, but once again, this is a closed-minded perspective to have. Chris was warranted at the time to feel the way he did. Miesha tells Todrick she has to win because they can't rely on Todd or Lamar to win the next HOH on Friday. Todrick says it's frustrating because every comp now feels like 2 versus 1, CARSON and Shayna versus him, instead of 2 versus 3. if he was getting the real help from the other black men that he believes he deserves. Miesha then says she will ask Chris Kirkpatrick a simple yes or no question to see if she can trust him. Now, this question is very key for why Kirkpatrick is going to be sent to the Shadow Realm. So I want you all to pay very close attention to not only this question later when she asks it to him, but how she comes up with this question with Todrick, because he helps her craft the right narrative to approach Chris Kirkpatrick with. All right, it's important for me to give out the adequate credit where it is due. I believe Miesha would have been lost 1,000 times if she didn't have Todrick and she only had Kirkpatrick. The fact that she has Todrick is why she doesn't need Kirkpatrick and why she should feel vindicated and feel empowered in taking him out to some extent. Now, the question is that she wants to ask Chris Kirkpatrick is, will you vote out Cynthia? Oh no, will you vote out Carson if Shayna uses the veto on Cynthia? That's the question. Period. End of story. If he doesn't give her a definitive answer, she will instead choose to backdoor Chris. Todrick deserves a lot of credit here for getting Miesha to see that no matter what, Todd should never be thrown up before Chris, even if Cynthia comes off the block. Miesha even brought up how much Todrick's energy towards Carson has changed. He went from saying Carson and Chris are equal threats to saying Chris is the biggest threat because Carson won't target them like Chris would. Todrick wants the smoke. Now, Todrick knows Shayna isn't really on their side and gave Cynthia credit for exposing Shayna's game. Todrick knows they have no reason to hide in rooms unless they are scheming against them. Miesha thinks Chris would never take out Todd over Carson because she thinks Chris thinks he can beat Todd. Todrick wants her to see Todd represents a number for their side, so they clearly could take him or would take him out just to weaken them. And when you add how Chris just took out MARAI, he has already begun to weaken the Wonder Twins, okay? Todrick says it makes no sense for Shayna to use the veto and get that blood on her unless there was some other plan they don't know about. Miesha says she will talk to Chris Kirkpatrick to get to the bottom of this. She says she would have to outright lie to her, and she doesn't believe she will, or believe Chris will. Sorry about that. Todrick wants Miesha to know that whatever she says to him, he will use as motivation to target Todrick with. Which is true, because every time she comes at him, he assumes Todrick gassed her up to come at her that way. And to be fair, she is so much of a recruit, it would take a superfan uploading data into her brain for her to approach someone like a superfan would, and that kind of is the tell every time. I'm just saying, anytime Miesha Tate uses some sense in her approach, you know Todrick is behind it, which is a compliment to his manipulative gameplay, which is a part of the game. Now, Todrick was on fire during this conversation. He even said Chris wants him gone, so he has two women on both sides of the house to make the end with. Todrick's only bad read is in assuming Todd has a deal with Chris to make final two. Todd don't like Chris like that. He don't like him like that at all. Days ago, he was talking like Chris was the weak link of their side. So at the end of the day, I think Todd loves the fact that Chris is on the block here. Todd doesn't like Chris that much. Todrick reiterates that this is the best time for Chris to flip because KATTAN just left the game. And in my opinion, KATTAN was always meant to be Kirkpatrick's ace in the hole, but when he realized he was too weak to play, he tried to segue. I really do believe if KATTAN wasn't in this house, Kirkpatrick and Shayna probably stay loyal to TEDDI. I think KATTAN being around made them think, okay, we don't need TEDDI. We got an extra third number. Let's weaken everybody else's third number and keep our third in the tuck. But then their third left. And then that's what made them realize, oh, we're alone. That's how I'm reading it, but comment below and tell me how you're reading it. And by the way, please do not forget to like this video as you all are watching, all right? I'm giving y'all that A1 game talk here. All right, I want to make sure y'all are ready for the Infinity War looming. Now, his sound game knowledge is really what saves Miesha from choking this week. I'm talking about Todrick here. Miesha says any hesitation from Chris will get him sent to the Shadow Realm. Todrick says as long as Chris is gone, him and Miesha can run this season after getting Shayna out. I will say this, though. Todrick is dumb for making it seem like Carson and Cynthia aren't after Miesha, though. I get it. For his game, he needs Miesha to be okay with this move, so he must lower Carson's threat level temporarily. But some of this stuff Miesha just isn't buying. And that's my read from all of this. Misha's like, all right, bro, you're trying a little too hard, all right? Like 3 days ago, you hated Carson with a passion, all right? Now all of a sudden, he's the greatest thing you've ever seen? Come on now. Now, Miesha thinks it makes sense for Shayna to use the veto on Cynthia to get back in her good graces, but it doesn't seem like Miesha sees the same logic in Shayna taking off CARSON. While Miesha isn't wrong here, she is being a little too gullible to think Shayna isn't being cynical here, because on Monday, Shayna didn't do a thing to disturb Kirkpatrick's noms, but now all of a sudden she's disturbing Miesha's noms after outing the formation to Miesha. Makes me wonder why Miesha hasn't outed Shayna to compromise her more with that pink room. And see, this is what I'm thinking. I'm like, damn, Miesha, you got a lot of tools in your locker that Todrick probably can't use to his advantage because he wasn't told specifically by Shayna, every member of the formation and whatnot. Plus, Todrick was part of the formation, so him outing it wouldn't have the same type of effect. But that's why I'm looking at Miesha like, yo, you got some dirt on this woman, Shayna, to compromise her a little bit. Now, granted, her using that veto is going to buy her some real estate in people's loyal membranes to the point where it's hard for Miesha to ever gain any ground. And Cynthia has vowed to never work with her. Cynthia would rather leave the game than work with her, a true queen. But it is what it is. And because of that, Coach, Todrick's like ideal scenario of CARSON and Cynthia flipping to work with him and Miesha will never work. In fact, CARSON and Cynthia want Miesha gone so they can get Todrick to flip and work with them. That's the funniest part about all of this. But let's continue. Now, based on this conversation, the power veto was similar to the board game called Jenga, where you must remove pieces until the tower falls, but in this case, they added pieces for the tower to stack before it fell. Sounds like Shayna did very well and has scared everyone like CARSON winning the week 1 veto scared folks. That's how bad it sounds like she washed everyone else. Sounds like we got a competition tonight to look forward to where Shayna just blows everyone's doors off. I'm talking on the Rainbow Six Siege side of the game. Now, Miesha then sends Todrick to go spy on the house around 9:30 p.m., but everyone is in their bedrooms already. About 40 minutes later in the bathroom sauna area, Miesha cross-examines Chris. Uh-oh, here we go. Hold up, let's take a water break for this. Because, boy, Chris, you put your foot in your mouth. Listen, I ain't seen someone... I don't want to speak in hyperbole, but I have not seen someone that I expected great things from to choke this bad in a while. All right, that's what I'm going to say first. Wow. And the way he tries to rebrand it. Well, watch this, all right? Watch how I flip this, all right? This is great. About 40 minutes later in the bathroom sauna area, Miesha cross-examines Chris Kirkpatrick. They first talk about week 2 in MARAI, then they quickly segue to what happens if Shayna takes off Cynthia. Miesha asks him if he will vote out CARSON. And instead of Chris just saying yes, which would have just been so easy, just say yes. All you gotta do is say yes. You know what I'm saying? What are you doing here, Kirkpatrick? Instead of saying yes, he decides to ask Miesha if she is going to nominate him. What are you doing, bro? What are you doing? There's a lot of people who bet money on you winning this season because you was a fan of this and that, just for you to fall on your face flat. I mean, damn, Coach. Can we really keep it a bean tonight? Can we really keep it funky tonight? It was already bad enough that Chris is having this conversation where anyone can walk in and eavesdrop, which was definitely done on purpose, in my opinion, by Miesha Tate. You mean to tell me you don't want to have this conversation with him in the HOH room alone? You want to have this where anyone can walk into the bathroom, eavesdrop, take their time at the sink, huh? Take their time with their hair, whatever, huh? She did that on purpose. She wanted to publicly embarrass him. She wanted to essentially interrogate him in a place where people can walk by and fact check. You got to peep game on how this was such a power move, and this exposed the inner backup singer within. All right, now let's break this down. Understand, being in the bathroom, not the HOH room, compromised Chris even more to have to be bipartisan because he doesn't know who is listening around the wall. This is why this location was super smart for Miesha to pick as the HOH. In the HOH room, Chris would have been more comfortable to lie out loud. That's why Miesha pulled off a masterclass here by applying pressure where the other side could see it. Now, if I had to guess, this was Todrick's idea as well, because this seemed a little too good to be true to come from a recruit. But anyway, Miesha specifically says she won't put Chris up if he is going to vote CARSON out. Now, at this point, Chris knows CARSON is coming off the block, so he should have just said yes and left it alone because he wouldn't have been in that position anyway. Chris says that's what we're doing instead of an emphatic yes. Then Chris asks, why is Todrick acting so weird? And this further exposes his agenda from last week. He shouldn't have been mentioning Todrick during this conversation. This is a massive choke. Then Chris says the only person he talks to anymore is Miesha, but that doesn't fly with Miesha because he is also close to Shanna. Miesha then says she can't speak for Todrick, and she can't speak for Chris to Todrick. She feels like Switzerland in all of this. Like she's being tugged by both sides. She is close to both, but their beef is hurting her game, and it's frustrating for her. Chris then mentions how he has her back, but Todrick he can't really trust. Chris then says everything he has ever done is for Miesha. Oh man, can someone get the violin out, coach? You know what I mean? Like, bro, this ain't a lemonade. You feel it? A lemonade. Down, 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 down. You know what I'm saying? That was my cut back in the day. I'd be up all night and a lemonade would pop up and I'd have to watch. I was hooked. I can't explain it. For the young kids out there, lemonade was an iconic show. Iconic, I tell you. But yeah, someone get the violin out for this guy, Chris. What do you mean everything you have ever done in this game is for her? Now, I agree you sending TEDDI home was for her. I agree with that part, but sending MARAI home was not for her. So I don't know what you're talking about. You sent MARAI home for yourself because you probably saw MARAI as another person she could drag to the end in her final two plans over you. So are you noticing the pattern that I've started to connect to you all? It isn't just Todd and Todrick. It's also MARAI, who Kirkpatrick was very threatened by. He felt all of these people had a high percentage chance of being dragged to the end by winning comps by someone like Miesha Tate. And he decided, I'm going to whack all of your lieutenants and you'll stay loyal to me because we cool. If you going at her lieutenants, you going at her game, bro. Why should she continue to trust you? That's why I said if she don't backdoor him, she ain't no good player. I said that in the last rant. Now I gotta hold that and admit, hey, she's a good player. Even though she still needed Todrick, this still was good gameplay. Because even though she had shades on to hide how her eyes are looking and stuff like that, which I'm not a fan of, because I think you're hiding a part of yourself while you're interrogating someone. You're trying to make it seem like you're super strong and stoic, but in truth, you have the shades on because you're not that stoic. That's just my thoughts on that. It's an oxymoronic stance from a nonverbal communication standpoint. But outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, I thought Miesha pulled off a masterclass here. Now, Chris even admitting this just validates everything Cynthia told Todrick, who told Miesha. He even said he feels like Miesha's little B. He even said that, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm trying my best to abstain from cursing in 2022 if I can help it. So hopefully you can read between the lines of what I really said there. Now, Chris then starts to dry snitch on himself by giving reasons why he saw no choice but to flip by saying he felt like Todd and Todrick had a final two with Miesha before him. He says he knows where he stands in the pecking order. He said he sounds like a man who got sprung over a juke at the club and now he expects Shorty to go all in the same night. You sound sprung, coach. Got me doing things I never do. You feel a dig me, coach? You need to hit up T-Pain. Do the remix. I don't know what you're doing out here in these streets, but you're tweaking. Now it makes sense why he made Todd into a target. He was jealous over Miesha going to the end with someone over himself. He really is targeting people Miesha would rather be with. He's the definition of a player hater in all connotations. That was an entendre, by the way. Oh yeah, I'm the Jay-Z of this. Don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Now, then, as clarity begins to seep in and Chris realizes he ruined his own game, he says, send me out. I'm no longer having fun. I'm having some fun, but who am I having it with? Brother, you have a wife and a kid at home watching you right now. You need to chill out because you sound like someone who is ready to risk it all. You feel it, dig me, coach? It ain't worth it, coach. It ain't worth it, coach. You know, especially when Todrick so easily can just keep you from ever accessing that region. You know? You feel it, dig me? Listen, he child locked you, coach. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you can't it's like when you can't let the windows up and down because they on child lock. You feel it, dig me? Listen, Todrick is locking you down in this game, bro. He got you to the point where you're snitching on yourself to Miesha Tate, and you're hoping she doesn't send you to the shadow realm with this? You just told her everything Todrick has suspected is completely true, and you tried to justify why you felt that way by making it seem like a romance that never was. It's insane. When you really break this down, he looks crazy in these streets. He looks crazy, you know? And for him to say, I'm no longer having fun, send me out, I'm having some fun, but who am I having it with? Bro, this ain't a day at Six Flags. You know what I mean? Like what is he talking about, dog? And see, later on, he gonna go to the Pink Room posse and act like he did all of this falling on his sword stuff for them to thrive. But he's acting like he can't have no fun if it ain't with Miesha Tate. If it ain't no cupcakes at the party, I ain't enjoying myself. He look crazy, bro. He looks all over the place, bro. I think his guilty conscience is kicking in because he know romantically he might be into Shorty a little too much. I think deep down in his heart, his conscience is telling him, fall on your sword and get out this game and save your marriage at home. I think another part of him thinks, I'm not built for this game the way I thought I was. I think another part of him is thinking, I put too much pressure on myself by trying to play both sides at the start of the game. Listen, everyone can't play both sides, man. Even the best of players like Dan needed to play the game a second time to play both sides perfectly. And even then, he had a bitter jury. Like, real talk, everybody can't play both sides like that, bro. Everybody got to stay loyal at the beginning, grow into the game, get comfortable, get used to being a nominee, used to having some power. Then all of a sudden they can get to that next step where they willing to play both sides. Y'all did it damn near basically 8 days into the game. Y'all did it. 9 days into the game. Way too early to be doing that. And see, you put yourself in the middle of a tornado when you could have had nice, empty, small wind, but nothing crazy terrain. You could have had a nice plains, hills, and valleys, but no natural disasters around you. But y'all created natural disasters for yourself because you wanted to cause chaos. When in all reality, all Shane had to do was keep Kirkpatrick on the side, allow that alliance of 3 in the Pink Room with TEDDI to stick together, and they would have had a 5. And all they had to do was figure out a way with their 5 to just vote out Todd when he was on the block next to TEDDI week 1. And Todd never gets into it with Cynthia later, but we'll get into that. But anyway, so basically, Chris is settling for Shanna and the Pink Room posse because he couldn't compete with Todrick. That's basically what he's telling Miesha. That's sad. And someone like Miesha, who respects alpha energy, she's not respecting this beta approach clearly. Now, because he already heard his own game, his last-ditch effort was looking for pity, but stuff like this just makes a woman who got it out the mud like Miesha more okay with sending you home. She thought he was an alpha and found out he was indeed the backup dancer. Chris then says he may hate someone before the door opens slightly and shuts again in the bathroom. He got sweaty. As soon as he said, hey, I might hate, that door opened, he's like, he ain't finished that sentence for nothing. That's when I knew, oh, damn, he shook. He shook in these streets. This made Chris hold back his words. Miesha says he won't hate anyone, and Chris says he hopes not, so Chris is saying he will be bitter in a subtle way. Pay attention. Miesha covers for Todrick by putting all her questions on Todd being scared of the block, but Chris sees through it and knows Todrick put her up to this. Chris then chokes completely by telling Miesha it makes sense for her to target him over Lamar or Todd because it's his time to go. He says it's just a game and he just wants a crying goodbye message from her. Why does that make any difference to you? So I guess for the entertainment value sake, like, wow, okay. I mean, this is just wild to me. Miesha then says it breaks her heart, but deep down you can tell she is happy he made this decision a lot easier for her. Chris flopped, and Miesha, with wise counsel from Todrick, proved herself as a legitimate player by handling this enough to make him expose himself. Then Chris exposes himself at 11:40 p.m. to the Pink Room posse by admitting he is going to the block no matter who she uses the veto on. He mentioned the test being used on whether he would vote to keep CARSON or not, but he withheld the information that he choked his own game by accident and now is rebranding it as charitable work for the Pink Room to survive. I don't know if this was a ploy to get Shayna not to use veto or not, but Chris claims he is sacrificing himself on purpose for her to use the veto and help the other three. I find all of this to be revisionist history designed to cover up a choke. Shayna, Cynthia, and CARSON were all a little shocked here. Feeds would go in and out. Cynthia would talk to CARSON alone, and both agree they don't mind if Shayna doesn't use veto for her game if Chris isn't lying about what happened with Miesha. Technically, Chris is lying, but not about touching the block, just about why he is touching the block. But kudos to Chris for never giving up the other three when Miesha applied pressure. He didn't give them up, so I do need to give him some credit, because even though he snitched on himself, he didn't snitch on them. I mean, if you're going to ruin your game, own your game, and sit on the grenade, if you will. He laid on the grenade. I mean, listen, I'm going to clown him, but he could have been a desperate dude. And see, this is what I'll give celebrities a little bit more credit for. They're more likely to go out with the people they wanted to align with because they know after the game they still have careers. Whereas all newbie, normal Big Brother seasons, people are more likely to take a lot more risks because it's do or die. Whereas a guy like Chris Kirkpatrick, still worth probably net $10 million, this isn't the end all be all for him, like it may be for a Todd, for example. So that's just me providing some sensible clarity to all of this. But Cynthia says no matter how much Kirkpatrick talks, she doesn't trust him. Damn. CARSON agrees. But then CARSON goes out of his way to cover his mouth and say something to Cynthia that was inaudible. I mean, on feeds, CARSON does something like this. And you can't see nothing he's saying. He's just whispering and he's like this. So you can't read his mouth. You can't hear him because he's so quiet. And I think Cynthia covered up her mic. So, you know what I mean? So I don't know what he said to her in that situation, but I thought that was interesting. Cynthia says the Lord won't let her trust Chris. She says Shayna and Chris both hate Todrick. So Cynthia is showing signs of knowing why Todrick will be important for a game and taking out Shayna down the road. She is figuring out her win conditions day by day. Cynthia says long term she wants to bring Todrick to their side and form a four after Miesha goes, but Shayna opposes it. While this is happening, Miesha is telling Todrick about how Chris failed her test by not telling her he would vote out CARSON. Miesha says Chris is grasping at straws because he doesn't have anybody after pump faking on Monday. Ooh. Todrick says Chris and Shayna are trying to weaken them, so they must weaken them back before saying it's about to pop off. Miesha took this as Chris giving her his blessing to take him out, proving his self-snitching alleviated all the blood from Miesha's conscience. Todrick then correctly predicts all four of them having a meeting, which Chris improvised by snitching on himself the second time with the Pink Room posse to further create the argument why Chris was after him and Shayna was after her. Cynthia believes this is a great test for Shayna to prove herself to them over Chris by choosing a side. Using the veto says she chooses them, not using it chooses Chris, who already ruined his game. Chris made the choice for Shayna in a sense. When you really break it down, it's the same way he took the blood from Miesha by telling on himself, is how he took the decision from Shayna. Chris played with fire by thinking Shayna would sleep in that room and wouldn't feel guilty about how she played them week one. He played with fire talking about moves he would later go against. In this game, you shouldn't mention anything until you are ready to do it because players will lose belief in you if you play a scared game. Kirkpatrick flopped under the pressure playing both sides came with. Todrick says he thinks they need to make a deal with Carson and Cynthia to take out Chris for a ceasefire between the group of four over the next couple of weeks to happen. Cynthia and Carson will never agree to not targeting Miesha, though. Cynthia said she would rather go home than work with her, so really Todrick needs Miesha gone for his game, or else he could go home because in theory, he could get nominated next to her. Miesha could win the veto, and now Todrick's the biggest threat left on the block. Even if Cynthia don't want to vote you out in that scenario, I think Lamar and Todd send you to the shadow realm if you're on the block next to someone like Shayna. I think they might. I think they might. I think Lamar would consider it, but I think Todd really has it out for Shayna, though. But I think Lamar is seeing the light. He sees Miesha as a threat, which is good for Cynthia's win conditions as well, because that's really who they need, right, to have that four-person majority moving in the final seven. But let me not get ahead of myself. Todrick then further put Cynthia over as making this all happen by saying she isn't even involved in drama, but she still forewarned him about Chris and Shayna. Miesha thinks Chris wouldn't have spoken with Carson and Cynthia already, but he has. Todrick says he and Miesha need to be more covert with their gameplay so no one knows their next move after Chris is sent to the Shadow Realm. Now let's get into Thursday's feeds. Around 10 a.m., everyone's waking up. Miesha calls Shayna up to the HOH room to discuss the veto ceremony. Miesha first asks if there is a possibility that she doesn't take Cynthia down. Shayna says she is open to it, but at this point she has decided to take down Carson already. So we already know this is a lie. It's not as if she is open to not taking down Cynthia. She's not going to take down Cynthia. But there's no reason for her to tell them beforehand and let them plan. Now, Todrick being next to Miesha allowed for Miesha to always plan this out for Chris to go up, and that's another reason why Todrick at every moment is beginning to foil Shayna. And it's pretty funny because earlier in the season, I thought production was unfairly portraying Shayna, and they were giving Todrick a lot of credit for playing the better both sides game. But I gotta be honest. Todrick is running laps around Shayna and Chris Kirkpatrick. Yes, Shayna's winning more comps, but she's winning the comps she has to win. Outside of the week 2 HOH that I thought Todrick had to win to back up Miesha, but Chris ended up simping out. I mean, at the end of the day, outside of that week, Todrick hasn't had to win any of these comps. So I really do think Todrick is sitting really good right now. Really good. Now, Shayna immediately says she feels like Todrick is mad at her. She then somehow connects that to feeling alone in the game. Isn't this the same thing Kirkpatrick did with Miesha? Why do these two try to play the victim when they get got, right? These are the people you flipped with. They know your game in and out. Why are you trying to act as if now all of a sudden you're alone? You flipped with them, then you flipped on them. You should be alone, technically. Why should they feel sorry for you when you just turned on them? Like, like I don't even understand how this is an argument being used, but okay, let's keep it moving. So her excuse is she wants to use the veto to keep someone safe that is a target over her. Miesha clearly prefers for noms to stay the same so she doesn't have to take Chris out, but she doesn't mind either scenario now because Chris choked. And she specifically says she wanted Cynthia gone more than Shayna before she won that veto. So Shayna went from being a non-threat to being a big threat in Misha's eyes, and Cynthia got even by flipping Shayna's untrustworthy past against her with the other side. Cynthia, a lot like Azza the Mazza, is more believed when she talks game because she rarely does it, right? So there is value in conserving that. There's value in knowing your intel is currency and holding on to your money and saving it. There's value in that. And I want more fans to take notes on this. Because to this day, people act as if Azza didn't play a good game, but she did. Maybe she didn't play the flashy game you may have wanted, but it was a good game. It was a respectable game. But let's continue. Cynthia, like Azza, is more believed when she talks game because she rarely does it. It makes her game talks more valuable per sentence than others. Miesha seems to think Cynthia is a threat for engineering Kirkpatrick's downfall on top of her connection to CARSON. Luckily for Shayna, Miesha understands her built-in game excuse for using the veto after what happened to TEDDI week 1, and she assumes the veto will be used on Cynthia before CARSON. Cynthia coming down doesn't change anything, but CARSON coming down changes a lot. So I don't see why Miesha doesn't see this. Shayna also throws it out there that the men will all vote men out this week, which alluded to her using the veto on CARSON as well, if Miesha connects the dots. Miesha specifically asked Shayna if she is pulling CARSON down after that, which told me she read between the lines there, and Shayna lied to her face before feeds cut around 10:25 a.m. Thursday morning. Shayna lying about this could lead to her going home right after Chris. She needs this next HOH as much as Todrick, but the streets also need a CARSON HOH. If anyone else wins it, I'll be happily surprised because in theory, Todd, Cynthia, and Lamar don't need the HOH, don't need the next HOH because they aren't targets. After Shayna leaves the HOH, Miesha says she is worried about shooting herself in the foot because she hates lying to people. Shayna says out loud she is disappointed in the face that Miesha in the deal that Miesha offered her because none of the deal made any sense to her. Like it was, uh, I think she said something to the factor of she wasn't offered nothing to not use the veto. She expected more from her. She expected some type of deal of 1 week's worth of safety at least, but it seemed like Miesha didn't offer her much. Um, so she sees no reason to tell her the plan beforehand. She prays they don't throw up Chris before grabbing Lamar for a one-on-one. She asks Lamar who he would vote out if Cynthia's next to CARSON. Lamar says CARSON is a bigger threat, so he might vote out Cynthia. That shocked me. When Lamar asks who he would take out between Todd and Cynthia, Lamar said Todd because he needs this more. Oh no, well actually he said Cynthia because Todd needs this more. Who he would take out. So that's interesting. Lamar then says he is willing to sacrifice his game. So technically he put over CARSON and Todd over Cynthia in the eyes of Shayna. That could have been strategy on Lamar's end, and we just can't see it. But that remains to be seen. That's something for us to document. Lamar then says he is willing to sacrifice his game for Todd because he really needs the money. He just doesn't get what Todd was thinking aligning with Miesha. So that tells me Lamar would have never flipped with them to get out Todd anyway. So in theory, the group dodged a bullet by letting Kirkpatrick sacrifice himself. I don't know what happened, but feeds cut for like 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden, Todrick is where Lamar was, and Lamar disappeared. Shayna and Todrick are debating the game. Todrick seems amped up because of what Shayna didn't give Miesha in their conversation. Shayna tells him straight up that she doesn't have Chris because he's too obsessed with Miesha, and by proxy, Todrick. She admits there is tension between those two, and Todrick says it all stems from the PR stuff, from the optics around taking out MARAI. Shayna then told Todrick about how Miesha couldn't even offer her safety next Monday if she won HOH, telling Shayna she can't trust Miesha or him. Scalding. Todrick says he doesn't want Shayna to judge him based on Miesha, similar to his argument with CARSON, but Shayna knows how the sausage is made a little bit better and doesn't buy the fantasy Todrick likes to sell to recruits. Shayna asks Todrick who he would nominate. He says Kirkpatrick next to Lamar, Todd, or Cynthia, but that's all lies. He just doesn't want Shayna to think the black folks are working together. So you could argue subtly Todrick is on code here, even though he really is misleading Shayna because he doesn't trust her. I don't think Todrick ever believed she was taking Cynthia down over CARSON. He also doesn't think anything involving Chris or Miesha should impact their relationship, but he hasn't trusted Shayna since she won the first veto. Now, everything I'm about to talk about now is after the veto ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, so follow me. A lot of stuff pipes off, and it's just random here. When feeds return around noon on Thursday, Shayna is explaining why she took CARSON off to Todrick and Miesha, who both seem rattled that Cynthia didn't come off the block. Shayna says she is still open to working together moving forward. Todrick says they were working together well to get out TEDDI and MARAI, but everything changed this week. Shayna says the Athlete Alliance changed it, and Todrick acts like it never existed, but it did exist, and that is why Shayna was never included in the Final Four deal, which I can confirm. So Todrick, you gotta own that part at least. I mean, come on now. If you're going to have some credibility in calling out others, you got to own it when you're called out. But see, it seems to be a one-way street sometimes with this guy. Shayna even mentioned that Lamar confirmed it, making Miesha and Todrick look funny style in denial. Shayna stands up to both and bodies them by saying she knows she would have went up if she didn't win the veto. The Wonder Twins tried to deny this, but the truth is KATTAN leaving sped up this betrayal from both sides. Miesha tries to act like because both women have won 2 comps, they both should be equal threats, but we all know all comps aren't created equal. Shayna won based off a technicality and guessing hours on Monday and played Jenga for a veto on Wednesday. Miesha, on the other hand, took off her clothes without moving a butt cheek and dominated an endurance comp on night 1. Miesha says there isn't another conversation to be had because Shayna lied to her face. She wants the smoke. She mentions how Todrick saved her and she committed to the same thing, and she was committed to the same thing, but it bit them in the butt. Miesha wants Shayna out now more than CARSON, I bet. Todrick probably still wants CARSON gone before her, though. When Shayna walks away, Miesha tells Todrick that her taking out Chris is her choosing Todrick's endgame compared to hers. Todrick explains to her she had no choice because Chris was after him. Todrick believes Miesha telling Chris he can't win this season made him spiral out of control and play emotional. Todrick also tells Miesha no matter how she feels, CARSON needs to go next so Cynthia will work with Miesha. But we know Cynthia will never work with Miesha. So that's dead. You feel it, dig me? But hey, he can believe that zombie stuff is popping off. You feel me? Hey, it is what it is. Carl! Hey, Carl! Now, Todrick says Kirkpatrick's actions have sabotaged both of their games because they don't know everything he has said. Around 12:32 p.m., feeds come back after being down a while, and all we see is the fallout from Cynthia asking Todd for her vote, and Todd went off on her, and it turned into this big dust-up. Todd lost his damn mind over her asking him for a vote. Now, to be fair, Todd shouldn't trust Cynthia because she voted to keep TEDDI, but that doesn't mean he needs to be disrespectful towards her, especially during Black History Month. I mean, damn, brother, have some decorum. All right, now I got a little bit of evidence in the top left corner for y'all as well, but follow me. CARSON wisely uses the moment to ask Todrick and Shayna if they will vote to keep Cynthia, and they all agreed before feeds cut. Spoiler guy claims Cynthia said her husband Mike Heel will make Todd go night-night. Hey, that's what the streets are saying. The streets are saying she said you got them hands, Mike. I believe you, Mike. Well, I believe her, Mike. You feel it, dig me? When your wife is nicknamed 50 Cent, I gotta believe she got a soldier. You know? But anyway, at the end of the day, spoiler guy is confirming a lot of stuff behind the scenes that went down during this fight. That production is leaking. It sounds like shit was lit. I bet it doesn't make it on television, though. But I'm providing this detail to let y'all know that a lot of fans are starting to suspect that this could have been staged a la Candy Burris and Tamar Braxton, and I'm going to get there in a second. Now, Todd is talking about cutting her throat on live feeds like a damn fool. This was embarrassing as a black fan trying to celebrate 4 black people making Final 7. Now I kind of wish Todd was on that block over Kirkpatrick like the original plans were meant to be. Cynthia then mentions how Todd walked up on her in a threatening way. These are all offenses that give production a right to expulsion. Apparently, Lamar was defending Cynthia during the entire skirmish, even though earlier in the day, Lamar said he would fall on his sword to make sure Todd won the game to Shayna. Did this situation make Lamar turn on Todd? Or was Lamar lying to Shayna all along? I'm just saying, listen, you got to ask these questions, all right? Because Lamar Kirby is here. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Lamar Kirby. Now, CARSON reminds Cynthia she will be staying because they already have the 3-vote majority. He wants her to keep her head in the game because momentum is beginning to shift, and Chris KATTAN quitting forced Miesha into a position where she had to eat one of her own. Cynthia would take a beauty nap to sleep off the stress. Lamar tells Todd now he has the house in an uproar. Todd says Cynthia bothered him while he was minding his business. CARSON then G-checks Todd in the bathroom by saying Cynthia didn't come after him, and Todd whines saying she kept saying stuff. He came off super beta on Thursday. I gotta keep it funky with you, ladies. It's an L. We don't claim Todd Bridges right now. Alright, we don't. Recently by his radio does not support any of that messaging. Now, Chris Kirkpatrick has to be thinking Todd is an idiot, but a calculated idiot, to wait until after the veto ceremony to do all of this. I mean, think about it. I mean, it's genius. It's genius. I mean, if you're going to do some dumb shit, do it now. You know what I mean? Don't do it then, do it now. You know what I'm saying? To some extent, he is doing this on purpose. He has to be. And by him doing it after KATTAN already quit, he knows production won't kick him off the show because they are already cutting it close after KATTAN's departure. I mean, they probably had to cut a double eviction, for this. They can't afford to also lose Todd. Who knows what else they got to cut if they lose him too. They could have had some other twist down the line. Who knows, right? Around 4 p.m., Shayna tells Cams that she is annoyed. I think she is bummed that Chris couldn't avoid the block. That was best case scenario for her game. Shayna tells CARSON one of their trio must win HOH. They both want Lamar to join them in Final 7 and form a 4-player majority. Shayna wants to get closer to Todd to learn more about Lamar's game. It sounds like the other side have Todd quarantined from everyone else. Todd spoke to Miesha in the HOH and told her he could convince Lamar to do whatever he wants. Cocky much. Sounds like now Todd is okay with voting to keep Cynthia after that blow-up, so now I see why certain fans believe the fight itself may have been staged, because in theory, Todd should still want her out over Chris, but he doesn't. He got over that fight in less than a day, but risked his entire game to just still be cool with Cynthia right after. It's weird. Could this be Cynthia implementing what she learned from Kandi Burruss? Could this be a ploy by the black players to fool the remaining white players into thinking they are all divided? Because this fight was perfectly timed to make the house rally behind Cynthia before this vote over Chris, which then means everyone is against Miesha in the next HOH besides Todd and Todrick, meaning Miesha now has a 66% chance of being targeted next week at the minimum and an 83% chance at the maximum. Todd says he plans to talk to Cynthia one more time so they aren't mad at each other. Todrick asks if he can talk to him beforehand. Todrick tells Miesha, but she isn't too worried about it. And salute to Miesha. She consoled Cynthia during this moment, which was shocking to me. I didn't think she would feel comfortable in that moment, but she did. And of course, in the top left corner, you guys are seeing some of the spoilers. Production is debating making this week a fake eviction week to possibly save Chris. Listen, I wouldn't be that mad at that because that would mean Miesha and Todrick are sweating something seriously. Also, with that KATTAN quit, I kind of do want to see a double eviction during a season like this, see people be salty. Also, it does appear that Cynthia may have yelled at Todd, but to be fair, if Todd really did run up on her like that, she had every right to let him know her husband he gonna talk to him about something. Some furniture finna move at the reunion. You know what I mean? That's all you need. That's all he needed to know. All right, but I just wanted y'all to be filled in on that. Now, around 6:23 p.m., Lamar is having a therapy session with Todd. Lamar specifically tells Todd that Todrick and Miesha need to be split up. Dr. Lamar Kirby. For now, Todd seems to be most focused on getting Shayna out because of the 2 vetoes she won, while Lamar seems to be focused on Miesha for the 2 HOHs she won. Todd's argument being Miesha couldn't stack up those snowflakes like Shayna could, so I'm guessing the Jenga veto was a puzzle to stack correctly. Lamar clocks Todd's game by saying, I see what you're trying to do. You trying to slide by, boy. But you can't. You black as hell. I was dying. Because to an extent, he ain't lying. You know what I mean? I'm spitting bars on accident. You feel it? Dig me, coach. That's pretty funny, though. All right? He knows Todd is throwing these comps to hide behind Miesha. That's why Lamar wants Miesha gone to force Todd into playing the game. Lamar then brings up how Todd said Mother F you to Cynthia, a.k.a. Mother God Earth. That's what Lamar calls Cynthia. Lamar starts laughing before Todd claims he was just acting. Huh? Todd says he was just trying to get people off him. But who? Exposed. Lamar then says Cynthia tried to get into some gangster stuff before feeds went down again. Lamar is the only one telling us about the feeds besides Spoiler Guy. Now, at the end of the night, Shayna tells CARSON and Cynthia that she doesn't know about Lamar's allegiancy, but fans know his target is the same as the Pink Room. I expect Lamar and Todd to throw the next HOH regardless, but Lamar probably throws it if the Pink Room is left up there, while Todd throws it if Todrick is still up there. Chris Kirkpatrick is convinced production turned Todd into wanting him out more than Cynthia after the fight. This would fall in line with Todd saying he was just acting and doing it for TV. I don't get it. If it's not even going to make it on a a family-friendly television show, why didn't he even do it for acting purposes? Really weird to me. Cynthia, Carson, and Shayna are going all out on Friday night to take out Miesha. Todrick is after Carson next. Miesha is a sitting duck after taking out Chris. Todd is after Shayna. Lamar is after Miesha, meaning 4 people are after Miesha, 2 are after Shayna, and 1 is after Carson, heading into Final 7. And Kirkpatrick, well, he just rolled over and died. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have appreciated the 11th rant of Celebrity Big Brother Season 3, entitled Playing with Fire. I'm, of course, your humble host, Dave Smith, and this is Recency Bias Radio, where no one is safe from criticism. What are your thoughts on this rant? Do you believe this is going to be a fake eviction tonight? Are you excited for the fact that Kirkpatrick was backdoored? Are you confident in any way in Carson, Shayna, or Cynthia, or Lamar winning HOH to turn this game on its head? Because if one of those 4 do not win this next HOH, at the end of the day, Coach, we're having more of the same next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do not forget to like this video, comment underneath it, and share with all of the fans of Celebrity Big Brother that you rock with. And I'm going to see you all later tonight for another doubleheader, all right? Deuces. Until next time, I am inevitable.